Hello and welcome back to my channel, and we rejoin the characters in the Green Dragon Inn. They have just successfully recruited Anarion the Ranger from the Northern Wilds. He has willingly agreed to join the party, swell its ranks to the nice round number of four. It was three, it's now four. So they feel quite elated by the situation. They're all having a good time in the Green Dragon. There was just a bit of housekeeping I have to sort out. I think when it came to when we were doing Anarion's statistics, his attributes, I had a bit of a crisis of conscience. I think when we were working out his strength, and there was I insisted that one of the first things I did was get his strength up to the amount of 13, which was the class amount. And I thought, well, maybe with hindsight, that might have been maybe a bit hasty. And what I should really be using this minimum for is certainly to do with the class side. But if after adjustments, his strength hadn't been 13, I'd have automatically placed that. And there was in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there was this this section here under the NPC, and this is the kind of the formula I'm using. I'm just using it almost like the NPC generation for player characters. And there was this section here that said, as fighter, 12 minimum wisdom, but it was really the strength. And I would say that because they're already getting a bit of a boost anyhow, because we're using 4 dice for the attributes, that +2 would be applied anyhow. So before the increase to 13, if you see what I mean. So I applied an automatic increase to 13, and then I applied another +2 to give me 15. So really, I should have only really applied that first +2 to get me up to 13, and that's and by default that's the minimum. So, but say I had been a strength of say 9, I would have got a +2 because of the fighter here, and I would have been 11, and because that's deficient, I would have got up to 13. And then after that, we do things like age, and also race, which I think are independent of that and can be over and above. So this was really to do with the class side of it, and I think that makes it a bit fairer. So that I'll only top up to the minimums, excuse me, if after all the class adjustments that we get here, we don't get up to that minimum score. So by default, poor old Anarion, he's not going to be quite as strong. He's still going to be strong, but we will knock 2 off his strength, so -2. So he doesn't get that initial 2, and he goes back down to 14, which is a pretty good strength. The sad thing is that he really needed a strength of 15. With these other stats, which do qualify, to get his 10% experience bonus. So that's a bit of a pain. But I thought I'd be true, and it just was kind of, it wasn't sitting right with me that I kind of almost like gamed the system a bit without even knowing I was gaming. It just, when I looked at the video afterwards, I thought, maybe you're just being a bit over generous to the Ranger there. Okay. Also, we came up with this this maritime background, that he was a sailor, and we assumed he was freshwater. And I kept on going on about lakes and stuff like that. And of course, there's rivers as well. So he could have had he could have been like a riverman or helping out. Maybe his family was involved in the river side of operations, and he's had that in his background, in his experience. So you know, I would say the river, the only lake that we've got so far on our map excuse, is Darkwater Lake, which is here. So that's the only significant lake. And if we're saying that Darkwater Lake is a bit kind of dubious, it's, you know, it's got that haunted temple on it. It might not be quite the kind of place that you're going to have maybe a boating civilization prospering around. So there will be large rivers in this area, and I've still got to map them out. So maybe that was part of his background on the rivers. And what I want to do is maybe just to determine his origins, because I think it'd be quite interesting to find out what hex he's from. Because when you think of it, if he is from the Northern Marches and he has been a ranger, he has had a bit of experience of ranging across. You know, that's I suppose the hints in the title, ranging across this area and coming into contact with others of his profession who have maybe some stories and they know some background details. So he might bring to the party a bit of just a bit more kind of world lore, a bit more inside information. And if, say, we go to a hex, say we want to go to Darkwater Lake, if he knows something about it, we might be able to like anticipate a few interesting bits of information about this and give us a bit of an advantage. But you know, I have to kind of think about that mechanic, and I suppose that's the thing when it comes to any of our player characters. If they have had a previous life and previous experience, how much does that actually impinge on the game, and how can we kind of replicate it? And I suppose with the Ranger, I suppose it's quite pertinent in this case because you know, they do I suppose in their professional capacity, they range across this area, and it's part of their duties. So you would have thought he would have a bit of you know, in Traveller it would be called streetwise. You kind of have a bit of knowledge of the local area. You think he'd have a bit of knowledge of the overall territory that he's dealing in. But what I'm going to do is excuse me, is do a calculation of his origins, and I'm going to divide this region into some areas, and I've decided to call these hexes here. We're not gonna have them in any of these backland hexes, so they're automatically discounted. But these hexes here, the ones to basically to the west of Marchton. So if we exclude March, he's not going to be in the Marchton hex. But this hex, this hex, this hex, this hex, this hex, this hex, down to Muirland Keep, I'm going to say they're all what I call the outlands. And then what I have after that is these areas here, which are the Northern Marches. I would call them the March hexes. And I've got this one, 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 and this one. So I'm going to say, I'm going to have a D6, and I'm going to say on a 1, it's one of these hexes, very unlikely. On a 2, it's one of these 2 mountain hexes. On a 3 to 4, it's one of the old forest hexes down to Wayford, more likely. And on a 5, it's this hills hex here with Darkwater Lake. And on a 6, it's the other hex, these other more debatable marginal areas down here in the south. So let's find out exactly where Anarion is from, and we can do a kind of random thing if we have a multiple selection to do. So he is from 4, which is forest. So it's one of these 3 hexes. So I would say 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6. He might even be from Wayford, or the environs of Wayford. He is, yes, he is. He's from the Wayford hex. So I'll just make a note of that. And I suppose one thing that I quite like to do, we haven't done a kind of another settlement generation process since our starting settlement at Marston. It might be quite nice to actually generate Wayford again as a kind of standalone exercise. Now that we've got almost like a direct link to it, we're not saying that he's actually from the actual village itself. He could be from the hinterland, but there is a strong chance that maybe that's where he originated. And it'd be quite nice to just find out exactly what Wayford's all about. So that's done. That's good. So he's not from these crazy outland hexes up here, which might have caused a bit of I can put my brain around it a bit. Just going to take a glass of water a bit. That's better. Okay. Next on my list was, now this was something that I thought quite hard about, and he's got this very high charisma, which is great because he's got that just through his dice rolls. But I just thought generally about the rangers in this game world, and them being outsiders, and I was quite keen to maybe have the same kind of dynamic that was in Lord of the Rings, where Aragorn and all the other Dunedain were kind of almost like, by the local populace, they were quite distrusted and they didn't understand them, and they thought maybe they were troublemakers, and they didn't know what their general purpose and their mission was. They certainly didn't understand the fact that the Rangers were kind of protecting the area. So I would quite like to bring in that kind of dynamic. So I think the simplest way to do that is to treat Anarion and any ranger that we have in the campaign as a foreigner. So when it comes to reactions, they don't get any bonus. So when say Dagobert is dealing with Siward, who is from the kingdom, he gets a plus 10% because they treat as goodwill. When Dagobert is dealing with, say, Thudibert, he gets a plus 20 because they're both from the local area. They get treated with preferred as their thing. And then when it's with a foreign person, and I think Perifold is a good example because he was a Northman. He changed his name. I think he was Osric before. He gets a plus 0 because there is a kind of implicit distrust of outsiders, and these rangers are almost like tarred with the same brush. They are part of that kind of general medieval distrust of outsiders. So I'm going to treat him as a foreigner. So if he even becomes the spokesman of the party, he's going to have a bit of a disadvantage because of just that implicit distrust that the general population has, and they don't understand the Rangers. They don't appreciate the fact that they're doing a job for them, and the Rangers they don't broadcast it. That's just their way. They just get on with the job. So the next thing I need to do is I said I would create a sheet very similar to what we've got for our player characters, our original party. I'm going to create a sheet like that for Anarion, and also I will do this sheet, sorry, which is all of his attributes, and then a similar one for his equipment, and basically get him kitted out with armor, with his probably going to have a missile weapon. He's got everything that he needs attribute wise. His dexterity is so poor, that's going to come back and haunt him. That's almost like the chink in his armor. He is going to be handicapped by that low dexterity roll. There's not much we can do about that, I'm afraid. There wasn't any attribute increases that we could have got. We just kind of we've just got to kind of like it and lump it, I'm afraid. So that's a job for me to do after this video, and just draft that out, and then I'll give you a quick presentation of just what sort of armor and weapons I want to select for him. I'm not going to make him go out on a shopping trip and stuff and kind of put you through the burden of having to go to Thunderberts and he has to kind of ask for things like studded leather armor and all that sort of stuff. I'm just gonna use my. In fact, I'll go back and check what I did for the other characters. I think I did a kind of like 50% of it was already being spent of their starting money, and then they had 50% to put into the pool that was available for adventuring. Now the next thing I need to do is what we got at the end of our session last time. We rolled for an event, and we got a rumour in our little table, in our little rumours table. It was a place of mystery, generate a place of mystery per the adventure generator with a truth index of 1 to 10 requiring confirmation. So I said, yeah, I'm going to generate that at the start of the next session. So we are at the start of the next session, or kind of into it. So I will get my subtable, my adventure generator table, which I think I moved it, here we go. Yeah, the adventure generator. So it's not a mission, and we won't have a patron. We have a place of mystery. So as a recap, I said, if a physical location is required, use the master table to detail what we are dealing with. Roll a location to establish what the place of mystery actually is. So I've got this table here. So that's a location, all these numbers, D40. So that'll be a D20 with a D6 to say whether it's going to be 1 to 20 or 21 to 40. To get a bit of atmosphere, roll a D4 and to generate some atmosphere and mystery. And I've got a little list of adjectives to kind of spice it up a bit, and just give it a wee bit of to get that haunted feel, forgotten and exposed and all that sort of stuff. See how many of those we can pile on, and then this is the real wild card, and it could cause a bit of grief. Roll a theme if appropriate to the mission. Well, we're just going to roll the theme and establish the level of threat that this poses. And remember, if you cast your mind back to when I was explaining this before, this threat level, that was all to do with just whether how relevant and how prevalent this thing is. So say we got one of the awful ones, which is say an undead lord and host, and we rolled a 1. That might mean that whatever we've actually rolled in, we might almost like treat his backstory as maybe a rumor, or this was something in the past, it was occupied by an undead lord. But say it was 10, we've got he's on the scene, he is in all of his magnificence, and he has a giant host of skeleton guardians, all resplendent in armor, and that we were really kind of the full shilling on that. So that's kind of how that mechanic works. So that it could cause some issues, and then we have the location of the area of interest, and we can generate where that is randomly and place it. So I think we really should just go ahead and populate the map with this rumor, and as I say, it is a rumor just now, so we'll assess its weight at the end. So first thing we need to do is a location. So I'll put POM and location, and we'll get our D20, and we'll have a D6 to convert that into a D40, and we'll get our master table, and this determines what we are talking about. So we've got all sorts of things we can choose from abbeys to villages, And within this, we've got things like sewer systems, mountains, monasteries, hollowed volcano, graves, fortresses. I've got 40. Basically got 40. I don't think there's anything repeated on that one. Oh no, I've got a manor twice. I'll have to change that. Yeah, I see that. Because I put this into alphabetical order, I should have gone through and edited that out. Yeah, I can do that. So let's get our D20 modified to a D40 out. We'll just roll it here. That is 2, because that 1 to 3 is the 1 to 20. So a 2 is, oh, this is interesting, a barrow. So yeah, so an underground burial area of maybe a dead king. So we've got barrow. Then like the Barrow Wights, remember, and from Lord of the Rings. They never appeared in the film. I suppose you didn't really have enough time to do that type of thing. They were quite an interesting little. They were really quite. It was really quite a creepy scene, because I remember reading The Fellowship quite recently, and it really is quite a touch and go situation for the hobbits, and they really needed that guy on Bombadil to come riding to their rescue and save them. So we've got a barrow to kick off. We have 1d4 descriptions that we apply to the barrow to make it a bit more atmospheric. So let's see how many we get. So we get our dice. We've got 2 descriptions that we'll apply, and these really just kind of give it a bit of air of mystery, or I mean, just what the kind of keynotes are when we come to look at it. The type of stuff I've got are deserted, desolate, forgotten, haunted, jagged, occupied, rough, ruined. There's quite a lot of ruined, shadowy, broken, blasted, ancient, abandoned. All that kind of good fantasy stuff. So let's get our D20 out again, and we're going to do this twice. So the first one we get. That is going to be 39, and that is wild. It's maybe also, this can also be to do with the area around about it and the location. So maybe it's a wild area. So that's description 1, and then description 2 is oh my goodness, it's withered, wild and withered. So well, withered could be read as like withered trees, and maybe there's these kind of gnarled old ancient forest that is within. So I've used this in the past just to kind of fire my imagination and almost kind of visualize the scene. So I've got these kind of these low barrows, which are kind of like burial mounds. There's mist and it's out in the wild, so it's in a deserted moorland. It's the kind of place that you would get in one of these hexes, like where a moorland keep is, for example. Out on the moors, that type of thing, or maybe even in the marshes. You'd have to get a bit of land that isn't going to sink, but probably like the moorlands or something, or the low hills, that type of thing, in a kind of misty veil, and it's got these withered, gnarled trees round about. It really sounds quite fantasy. That gives us our 2 descriptions. Now the next thing we need to do is, for some reason I've lost it, is to give it a theme. And this could be sometimes this is where discretion is the better part of valor. I have the override to say I don't think that's going to quite work. We can tone it down a bit, because we can use the threat level. This could have been something that was in the past, or it's a kind of fading issue. I think the best thing to do is, and certainly in all these instances I've come across, is just to do it and see what happens. So we get, that's going to be an 11. So outlaws. Okay. Wonder if maybe outlaws are using it as a kind of using this haunted area that, you know, to almost like scare people away, and they know about it. They're kind of in on it. Okay, outlaws. So that's the theme. Let's see how strong it is. You know, because maybe it's been visited by outlaws. Maybe outlaws use this, or they whatever, or maybe this is one of their center of operations. So let's see what the threat level is. It's right up to 10. So this is almost like our brigands. We have outlaws and those barrows. It might not be the logical bedfellows having outlaws. Maybe they're using the barrows. Maybe they have gone in and sacked them and got all the treasure that from the barrows. Who knows? You know, that's the sort of thing that we can kind of bounce these ideas off and see what we come up with. This just designed to give us a kind of rough ideas and outlines, and then we can just use that to seed the threads and get the campaign a bit more invigorated, as if it needs any more invigoration with Darkwater and Dunmorna. Okay, right. I think I've done, have I done everything I need to do on that? Just really to find out the location. And that's the crunch. So the location of the area of interest is 1d3 hexes away in a random direction. 1d6 hex faces clockwise. So we'll work out how far away it is in hexes. 1d3. So it's only 1 hex away. Okay, so it's quite close. And the location, we'll do it, I'll get my little hex map out so you can see how I work this out. Yeah, I do have a caveat. It says the roll can be influenced by the nature of the threat emerging, so it doesn't need to be an arbitrary roll and can be weighted, for example, limit to a northern mountain hex. I might say that we don't want it in this hex here because it's unlikely to be a feature with the military road going through and the patrol. But who knows? It could be in the depths of the old forest down here on the debatable area. Let's find out. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's find out where our barrows are. And when I say outlaws, you know, they're just going to be maybe people that are maybe using it. We do know that it is a high threat. So, you know, that is of interest. You know, are they in league with the brigands? Outlaws. So they are 3. So 1, 2, just after saying I was maybe not going to have it in that hex. It is in that hex. I would say that if it's going to be in that hex, it has to be right on out here. Maybe it's down in this area of the old forest. That's interesting. So where do, yeah, of course, yeah, Anarion was from Wayford. So there's some barrows down here. There's barrows a bit. Well, I suppose we had Dunmorna down in the bottom of this hex. Who's to say? Well, maybe even the barrows are up here, and it's more towards the mountains. They're in the foothills. Yeah. They have to be quite far away from this road, I think. The road itself, it is being patrolled, and I suppose these are still wildlands. So, yeah. Okay, right. Interesting exercise. Food for thought. I will take this away. I think we've done enough. I've got the location. I've got the theme. And I know it's a barrow and it's in a wild and withered heath, maybe. Maybe it's a part of the old forest. It's got these withered trees from around this haunted barrow. site. Yeah, and it could be quite near the scrubland in the thing. Yeah, I think it's probably going to be down here. This debatable bit of area. That's where it's. Yeah, I think that's probably where I'd locate it. Okay, that's that exercise done. Now, we are in the middle of we're probably getting into the evening of day 11. I've taken away my little thing. We have the 4 seasons on, so we can always see how Roland gets on tonight. We'll do our D10. So he's stepping up on the plate. He's got his lute out, the flute's playing, the little drum, and the viola. The viola's maybe a bit more low key tonight. It's not going to be quite as prominent in the mix. But let's see if the lute gives us the lute. And remember, we have a residual +2 from last night. I'm going to cap it at +2. I'm not going to say it can go any higher. We were off the chart last time because we got a 10, added to 2. We were actually a 12 out of 10. So imagine that. So tonight, yes, it's another very good performance because that's a 6 plus a 2. That is an 8. Again, the crowd are very, very pleased. It's a good Thursday night's entertainment. They think this Roland, he really has. He can come back anytime. They are delighted with Roland. Right. I think the only thing I want to do for this video, I've still got left to do, is for the characters. We've really just got to maybe just try out their options and try to make a decision on what they want to do. We've got Dunmona, and what we could do is we could explore that further. And also we've got obtain pool sample. So the magic pool, we've got that offer that Perifold was on about, that he could contact Kayla and say, you're on, we get the sample back. It would take us 3 hours to get the sample, but if we can get the sample, maybe do the sample at the end of a bit of exploration, and the last thing we do, get the sample, get it back within 3 hours. We've got plenty of time to play with, to get it to Kayla. She can do the analysis. Fingers crossed, we get a result. So that's an option. And if you look at our maps, we've got our maps. So there's level 1. We've still got a few options we can look at down this. There's the Sturges bit. Sturges might be a bit difficult still to take on. We've got 4 now, but do we really want to take them on? There's a few doors here that we could go through and have a look at. There's this trap that kind of, remember, with the sliding door, we don't really want to mess with. And then if we go up to level 0, up the chimney, we've got obviously the pool. And there was this corridor down here that we could have gone down. And then the original kobold corridor, we never really kept going. And the kobolds ran off and we thought, oh, we're not going to take the risk. So there's plenty of opportunities to do a bit more exploration and delving around. Yeah, I think, and we've tantalized Anarion with the promise that he's going to go adventuring, and maybe he really wants to go to Dunmona and just check it out. And we've got these maps that we can show him, and he's really quite tantalized by the fact that we've got all this information, with these beautiful hand-drawn maps that Lindris has done with these little sturge pictures. And we can give him all the inside track on this. So he really is he's really warming to the situation. He's becoming, as time goes on, it's only been a few hours, he's very much bonding with the rest of the chaps. He's going to be a good party member. His charisma of 16 is going to come in very useful, even though he gets that awful stigma of being an outsider. It's just not fair. Otherwise, he'd be on a +25 on all social interactions. Well, he'd still get the +25, but he would get probably a minimum of, say, +10 on the being almost like a person from the Northern Marches. as being not a local, but like from the kingdom. So that's Dunmona is option 1. Option 2 is Darkwater. And I think with Darkwater, we've got maybe three ways to skin the cat on this. We've got Rumix, but when we had the interview with Adland and we had that discussion, she was saying that he really that was all he had on his parchment, because remember the parchment was the kind of the hook that said this is what, there's a temple there, there's in the middle of this lake, you go over on this causeway. It was a place of evil. It was a pilgrimage site, imperial cult, all that kind of stuff. But that was kind of all it had. So Rumix might not be the greatest option. So maybe we'll put unlikely on that one. Then we have maybe Rubicus. Now remember, he's quite a touchy character. He's a bit difficult to approach. Has he got information that relevant to the temple? Maybe that's being sucked in, because remember Rubicus is the kind of this is the state side of all the missions that Seaward runs, the Seaward mechanic that basically is run by was it Fulcrid and Eridan. They administer the almost the largesse that Seaward can give in terms of missions. They might already have this place in the frame. So do we really want to kind of maybe stand on people's toes on that one? So I would say that's maybe that's questionable. And then the other option, I suppose, when we spoke to there was Party B. Now Party B have actually been there. They didn't actually penetrate it. They didn't get over the causeway because they almost had that bit of a fallout because of Malor, where he fell down off the causeway. Must have been some very loose footing. It was all misty and whatever. And they had a bit of a fallout with Baldur because he was pretty gung-ho to carry on and against the wishes of the party. They are actually been there, and maybe there's two ways we can approach this. There's one where we just ask them if they have any details of how to actually get to that causeway, and where it's located on the lake, because it could be, if we look at our, this is all we have map wise of this. Of this lake, this thing, it's just this great big lump of water called Darkwater Lake. It could be over here, it could be on this bank, it could be on, or it could be right here, just very close. That's been about 50, maybe not even 15 miles, maybe 10 if as the crow flies, or it could be almost 20 over here. So we've got quite a bit of a hike to get to it. It could make quite a bit of a difference. Say we had to walk all the way around, that would take a while, maybe a day to get all the way around that. And we're willing to waste our time. Well, we could maybe short circuit it by asking one of Party B. So we could, that's an option. There's the Party B ask for info. And then we could also maybe even recruit one of Party B and use them as a guide. And I was thinking, well, the ones we've got in the frame are probably Adland, who we've already, and we've got a reasonable relationship with Adland now. Where is my Adland? We've got Tibbet, cleric of Ithrix, and we've got Clothar, the druid. Now Malar's laid up just now, but we do have a bit of a tension. Remember, he has a bit of a dislike for Tristan, and maybe that's always going to be at the back of our mind. And I think Baldur is best being left to be Baldur. We've just got a kind of bad feeling about him. He's too unpredictable. He's chaotic neutral. he's just yeah. So I think we aim for one of those three, and who would be the best? I think that's something that the party can maybe discuss. Who would be the best fit? So we already have a cleric. We don't have a druid. I was thinking if we go for Adelind, I might be generous to Adelind and make her a bit more, give her a bit more flexibility. Almost like she's come from quite a privileged background, and when it comes to spells in her kit bag, I thought, well, why don't I be a bit more on the generous side? And let's get to the spells bit. Spells, yeah. We did this for Alindris when we were generating his spells, and we just did it randomly. And I think it does actually say you should do it randomly. I thought, let's give Adelind a bit of a break, and we'll roll 3 times on each of these, and we'll select the one that we want. And if we do get a choose thing, which is 10, job's done for us. We could choose something like Sleep, which is useful, Magic Missile, Charm Person, you know, that type of thing. They're quite useful. And on the defensive, we could get things like, what's it? Maybe Protection from Evil. Shield could be quite useful. I don't know what else. Not really that familiar with defensive ones. And then these ones, you know, choose one of the best. You know, at least have more more flexibility when it comes to the choice of spells. And I'm justifying that on the basis that she came from minor nobility. She had an excellent tuition from a master back in probably the capital. She's quite. I think she's 38. She's had quite a long apprenticeship. She has learned a lot in that time. So she is probably quite an experienced first level magic user. So I'm going to give her a bit of a break. So that makes her quite attractive as a choice. And then I think from a cleric's point of view, we've already got a cleric. So would we want 2 clerics? Might beef up our healing abilities. But I just got the feeling he's probably the lowest down in the food chain on what we want. So Madeline's strong. Clothar the druid. You know, a druid. What's a druid bring to the party? I suppose a different set of spells and skills. Yeah, I'm not really that familiar with druids because I don't think I've ever played a druid. So that might be quite interesting, you know, from my own personal point of view, having a druid in the party that can just you know, something new. And the druids' backstory they're all from the Westlands, so that's just to the west of this area. So druids subclass, they're always neutral, aren't they? They've got quite high stats. So yeah, they do things like on the outside, identification of plants, animals, water. Yeah, visualizes medieval cousins of what ancient Celtic sect of druids would have become. So I quite like that idea. I think they're kind of almost like the medieval version of what druids were. Yeah, I think a druid might be quite interesting as something. They get only, in fact they get 2 spells at level 1. So yeah, I think that would be quite a nice dimension. So I would say that Clothar, I think the only downside on his character was he was a bit arrogant. But hey, most of the characters have got a bit of arrogance and swagger about them. So I think that is quite a good option if we get someone to recruit, and then they can act as our guide. And we can short circuit this, we can short circuit that. We don't really want to deal with Rubicus. Rumix doesn't sound as though he's really going to give us very much. Party B seems to be the thing. The only downside is that we create a bit more of a rift with Baldor, and we might, because he's in charge of Party B, and if we're poaching some of his people. However, we've now got there's 4 of us now, and we've now got the services of a tall, well built, albeit rather clumsy ranger He really looks the business. Baldur might think twice about maybe causing a bit of dissent. There's probably, I think there's maybe a bit of subtext with Baldur. The fact that Lindros has got Dark Slayer. Dark Slayer would be the perfect marriage with Baldur. He would be dreaming of a +2 chaotic neutral sword. He's probably if he finds out about this blade, and who knows, he might already know about it. He might be this could be an element of his jealousy that would just get worse and worse and fester in the campaign. Okay, good. I think it's almost pretty debatable between the two. I am minded to go with what we originally said that we would do for Anarion, and that was to let him in on the Dunmorna experience, give him some basically some adventuring time, almost get his air miles up, get his experience of us as working as a team. We can work out what our marching order is and how we approach things, and he can use his surprise things. We can see all that in action. We get that in spades if we go back to Dunmorna. I'm minded to go down that route and get ourselves ready for another dungeon adventure, and just see whether we can tease out more of the secrets of that place, and then thereafter follow up on Darkwater and have another dungeon on the go, and then of course we've got these barrows as well. You know, that's I've got to try and work out how I'm going to seed that into the game. So there's plenty in the mix just now, but I think for the bread and butter, and to give Anarion a chance to show his to shine, a chance to shine in the party, I think we go for the Dunmorna thing. So it's going to be an early night for the boys tonight. We're going to set off first thing tomorrow. We'll get a message up to Perryfold that we are going to be back by sunset, probably late afternoon, with a vial from the magic pool. We want Kayla on call to do the analysis. We'll get everything sorted out, and in the meantime, we might even get some nice booty and some combat experience for the team. So exciting stuff, I think. Having Anarion in our group, it almost feels like we've almost become complete. If we get another, and when you think of it, our representation isn't very good. We've got 4 males. We could do maybe with a female, just to kind of give us a bit of balance. My Traveller campaign, I've actually got three females and 1 male. So there you go. They're putting my AD&D group to shame. But it is kind of weighted. The thing, it's 50-50 in the Traveller universe, because that's just what it's going to be, isn't it? It's going to be like males and females are just going to be basically on the same level in the future. But this is medieval, so I've got a 10% weighting on, I think 25% on characters. So we would expect a quarter to be female. But if we get Adelind, we get up to 5 and 1 female. That's good. Okay, I think I've talked enough today. We'll be off to Dunmorna in the morning. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.